Fire up the roof is a popular phrase in any film or TV show involving emergency services. It represents one of the most iconic features of any agency, be it law enforcement, fire, or medical: the use of lights and sirens. The idea behind their use is to expedite emergency responses when those precious few minutes or even seconds could make the difference between life and death. But is it worth the increased risks? This is Lifeline. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lifeline 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I am your co-host, Gary, and today we are discussing lights, sirens, accident? Should emergency services use lights and sirens run code as often as they do? So I was digging around the internet, as I am prone to do sometimes, and came across an article, which will be in the description below, from a news organization called WRAL in North Carolina. They serve the Raleigh region. And they were talking about how their EMS were going to reduce the number of calls that they ran code to on a type basis, to pretty much just go down to the shootings, the stabbings, and ironically the car accidents, in order to try and make it a little bit safer for the community and the first responders. Just to kind of dig into some of the numbers, I'm kind of a stat guy, as you may know.
Just a little bit of a stat guy. Go ahead, Gary.
So the National Safety Council has some numbers from 2023, the most recent year available, on how many traffic fatalities were caused by emergency vehicles. And the total was 198. And of that 198, 107 were caused by those emergency vehicles running lights and sirens, or a little bit more than half. But when you consider that an emergency vehicle isn't running lights and sirens half the time, that kind of indicates that when they are running lights and sirens, the level of danger is highly elevated because a greater portion of the accidents are occurring in a smaller portion of the time. Is it worth it to have vehicles and personnel running code across town all the time or across county?
That's a tough one. It really is, because the numbers don't lie. So, and we know that it doesn't save as much time as is perceived, right? So I remember when I was doing my EMD certification when I worked for Denver 911, and one of the classes that we had to take was kind of like statistics, if you will. And one of the things that I remember about that class is one of the instructors said, basically asked the question, does lights and sirens get us there any faster? And we were all like, yes, absolutely, certainly. And he was like, no, it really doesn't. It saves us most of the time only about 30 seconds. And messed me up, because I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He said it caused more congestion with them trying to get around.
Yeah.
Car trying, because people don't pull over for them.
No, not very much anymore.
They really, really don't. They just like, okay, out of 20 cars they may encounter, maybe 5 will pull over the way you're taught to in your driving classes, and the rest of the time they're trying to navigate and scoot around and drive over and all of it. And then the other people who are just oblivious to the lights and the sirens and the color of the vehicle.
Yeah.
They just continue on, and that's how the crashes happen a lot of times. So, but I don't know if maybe it's a perception thing, what that would look like if we just didn't run lights and sirens.
Well, sure, because using the lights and sirens is certainly a way to let the public know, hey, there's your government is at work for you, responding code 3 to or code to these calls. And not doing that would certainly sound a lot different. I mean, it lets the people know there's a response coming. And sometimes in calls, that's a good thing. So if you're if you're dealing with like a burglary or something to that effect,
Right.
you may want the bad guys to know, hey, the cops are almost here. I can hear this. I can hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, if you're working on an ambulance and you're going to like a heart attack or a blocked airway, that extra 30 seconds may make a difference between success or failure. There are a whole bunch of calls that are responded to with code that may not need to be, because 30 seconds here or there, if you're going out to somebody who had a vehicle broken into, may not make a difference if they're just waiting for an officer to make a report.
Well, and I know for us, most of the time for police, they're not running code to a burglary unless it's in progress. And in some jurisdictions, they may not even respond if it's not in progress. So, and I know that we're not the only agency that responds in that way. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is if it's not in progress, you don't need it. But like take EMS for instance, for our EMS, to my knowledge, they run code to just about everything.
Yeah.
It's a given. And you can say we don't need them lights and sirens. Well, you can say that, but you're still going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
But and then when we think about the perception, knowing what I know, I still struggle with the idea. What do you mean? They're just driving along like me?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right. I I hear you with the statistics, and I'm so sorry, and that's just awful. But it don't sound right, Gary.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you. Like it's an integral part of what it is to do first responder work. You know, you fire
Uh-huh.
up the roof, you have lights and sirens going. I mean, it's as iconic as a shiny red fire truck or, you know, a black and white police car. You know, it's
Yeah.
part of the zeitgeist of
Cool.
what people come to expect for it. And not having
Yeah.
that it's different. It's weird. But how often is
I
that
don't
useful? I mean, is it something that overall is helpful?
helpful for perception when it comes to the taxpayers feeling like they're getting their tax dollars worth, if you will.
Sure, sure. But I mean, like you and I both have taken complaints from people that are like, you had a cop that was driving and he turned on his lights and sirens to just get through the intersection, and then he turned them off immediately afterward. And I think that's kind of crap. Whereas what may have happened was he started code to a call and maybe was pulled off, or the call changed, something like that.
Mhm.
And so no longer needed to respond code. So that can kind of give a negative perception.
So I think at the end of the day, it's probably a perception thing all around. Not to say that those accidents did not have real impact and change some people's lives, no doubt. But at the end of the day, I don't know if you can say it's necessary or not necessary unless you have some real numbers to back that up.
Sure. Yeah. And it's almost impossible for most calls to say, would 30 seconds have made the difference? If we don't know, let's err on the side of caution and try and get there as soon as possible. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of incidents where you know that imminent threat to life, safety, or property is not necessarily in the cards. So if somebody's reporting a suspicious person, that you may not need lights and sirens. Or if somebody's reporting a cat stuck in a tree, as the saying goes, when was the last time you saw a cat skeleton in a tree? Never.
I have never heard tell of such.
But you know so does that need lights and sirens? Is it worth endangering people?
I would when you put it like that, the answer has to be no.
Yeah, because not only does it endanger the public and the first responders, but now you have two. Like if you have a cop going out to a scene and they get involved in a crash, now you got two things to work, and that really sucks because you're concerned about the officer and any of the
Yeah.
civilians in the area. But then you've also got this other thing that officer was initially responding to that could also be a really bad thing.
Yeah. And now we have both of those to worry about.
Yeah.
So now you have to send someone to that one, and that one still needed help. And so now you've got double the amount, most likely, and depending on how bad it is, maybe even more, the number of responders going to said, incident.
Mhm.
So I get where that agency is coming from. My guess is there's quite a bit of research has gone into that decision. I'm thinking that they probably did not make it lightly. They
Sure.
probably have some statistics and some talking points, because the question is going to be, if you're not running lights and sirens to everything, what are you running lights and sirens to? At which point then you'll have to make some, you'll have to give some explanations as to the why and the how and the when. So I guess, even as I'm saying that, I kind of get it. If it's not a shooting or a stabbing or a heart attack, or, you know what I mean? I don't know, some mom giving birth type situation where time is truly of the essence, do you risk it? And I guess the question is no.
Because I mean, you also have the like if you make everything an emergency, then nothing is an emergency, right?
That is true. And we know that, as we said in the very beginning, people hear lights and sirens and they look around. They can even see them coming up in the rearview mirror and they're like, I'm in a hurry too. Just
Yeah.
keep going. Just
Unfortunately,
deal
yes.
with it. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've literally seen that where I actually, it's funny that we're talking about this, because yesterday, as a matter of fact, on my way back to work from a hospital situation that I had to take care of,
It.
I'm on my way back to work and felt like it was an ambulance. Pretty sure it was an ambulance that came up. And I'm going over, the airport, that little airport thing from, uh, what
Yeah.
is that, 30 seconds. And I hear it. I'm like looking around, looking around. I don't see anybody yet. I don't see anybody yet. And then I give it a few minutes or seconds, and then I look up, and there are the lights and the sirens. And I'm going, oh snap! I need to pull over. Where can I safely pull over? Right? Because that's what you do.
Yes. It's what you should do.
Me and one other car pulled over. The other one just kept going, and the ambulance came up behind and was like, "You gonna move?" And that person just do 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 do. I went, "Oh wow."
It.
That's why I'm so funny, because I can't believe I didn't remember that even when you brought up the subject. Just yesterday, this happened, and the person, it's a little gray car, just do 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 do, and me and a little black car in front of us, we were like scrambling, trying to get and trying to get out of the way, and the other person's like, I got somewhere to go too. So
Yeah. And I mean, if you can reduce the number of times that happens, because then you might cause an accident just because some people are trying to follow the law and get out of the way, and some people are do
mhm.
do 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 do. I mean, so it has to really, the incident that is requiring that has to really be important enough, because also if you do that too often, people are going to be like, I hear this all the time. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna move over. You know.
Like that one car.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, you are a terrible person. I can't believe you didn't pull over. Just kept going. Do, do, do,
Mhm.
do.
Yeah, and then because you two did what you were supposed to and pulled over, and they didn't, now the ambulance can't go on the shoulder where because you guys are there where you should be, and it can't go
Mhm.
on the road because that other car's there
Uh-huh.
where it shouldn't be, and you block the road. So yeah,
And now, if and the people that are coming this way aren't paying attention, because they just aren't, and now you've got a crash or something.
eh,
And hopefully, it would be a fender bender, or nothing life threatening. But there's always that chance,
yeah,
because some people just don't pay any attention to it. But then ultimately, it comes down to, I think, it comes down to perception. And the public wants to know, like you said, that there is a rapid, exigent, emergent response happening to their situation. It's going to take a lot of education to get people used to not seeing lights and sirens as often as they used to, if they know about it anyway. Because I'm, how often does the public pay attention to what someone's going to? Like, if they see a fire truck, they know it's got to be something on fire or a gas leak or something. But with EMS, I would think, I just think it would take some education to get them used to the idea that they're not going to be responding lights and sirens to everything.
And we were kind of also talking about before the show the sense that it gives the community. I live in maybe not the greatest part of town, and so I'm fortunate enough to hear sirens very, very frequently. Does that make my neighborhood feel more or less safe? It's hard to say, because it's good to know that there is a response happening to something somewhere, but also there's a response having to happen to something somewhere in the
Something
neighborhood.
somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. I see your point though. And those of you who are listening, you can't see my face right now. So you might ought to pop over to YouTube so you can see me go, as he's describing where he lives. And I'm not going to give it the zip code right now, but it has a little bit of a reputation. And most people, when they meet Gary, they're like, "You live where?
You got to be tough. You got to be tough.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That or crazy?
Uh,
I'm not sure which. Yeah,
I did not choose the thug life. The thug life chose me.
I can't.
Ha-
That is so. I don't even know what that. Yeah, I have to move on. I don't know what to do with that.
But
I'm not gonna let you live that down. I'm gonna be talking about that. I'm telling everybody at work what you said.
oh
That
dear.
and it's amazing. Matter of fact, I'm hopping on Teams right
Oh.
now and telling everybody Gary has chosen the thug life, y'all. That's that thing. It's like Clark Kent and Superman, only it's Thug Man and Gary. So made me forget what was I gonna say? Now I don't remember.
It's okay.
Anywho,
We're talking about neighborhoods and like how like having frequent sounds of emergency responders, how that makes you feel in the neighborhood.
yeah.
When I think about like a really pleasant neighborhood, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I don't have the sirens in my head.
Well, yeah, I don't think you're wrong about that because take my neighborhood for instance. I'm in a there's you go right across the highway and then you're in what would be considered a more affluent type neighborhood, but then you have pockets where it's not as uppity, but we don't even hear lights and sirens very often.
Hmm.
And when I look up and see an EMS truck in my apartment complex, my brain immediately goes, knowing what I know though, I go, okay, that's medical, so that's not a big deal. But I also know the difference between the sirens. I know what fire truck sounds like when they're doing their thing, and I know what police sounds like in EMS. So for me, I would I would not I wouldn't think it was bad, even if I heard police, because I'm off a major highway
Sure.
where there's always crashes because there's an intersection near me that people just cannot seem to navigate to save they just can't work it out. I don't know why they can't work it out. It's rarely, there's no fatalities, but you see the police cars having to go deal with this intersection all the time, and it's almost always rush hour. And so you hear whoop whoop because they have to in order to get through the sludge that is traffic because it's just awful.
Yeah.
So knowing what I know, hearing sirens often, I would first pick out what kind of siren, and then that would make me deduce, okay, what kind of situation am I most likely dealing with here, or what is it they're responding to? So maybe you and I are not the best.
Yeah. I mean, we work in the field, so
So it not be like, oh, okay. But then I would also take into consideration how many times a day, a week, a month do we hear that?
mhm. I mean,
But your average person
yeah.
would not think that way.
Yeah, I mean, it would concern me if I heard gunshots and then no sirens. That would be the worst of all worlds. But yeah,
This is true. Which I'm sure not even, where this place is in Carolina. I'm thinking that's probably not what is going to be on that list of things that they're not going to run lights and sirens to.
mhm.
But getting back to, the core of it, I really do think that it is a perception thing, even for those emergent situations, because the truth is, if they ran just lights but not sirens, will people move over anymore? Don't know.
Yeah,
But it becomes if you're that person who has what you believe to be an emergent enough situation that required lights and sirens, when you don't hear them, are you going to complain and say that your emergency wasn't as important as XYZ? And then now we've got that complaint to deal with. And enough of them, it becomes, where there's smoke, there's fire. With enough of those complaints, now you have what is the bane of all politicians' existence is a perception problem. They don't care what it is; they care what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in that world as first responders and government people.
Yeah. I think ultimately what the best course of action to do is to be judicial with what you have your agency respond lights and sirens to. Understand that anything that, emergency response is going to is a high priority. But if you really want to save this is really, really an emergency, like someone's been shot, save that for, we're going to use those lights and sirens on those. Whereas a more minor thing, a fire hydrant's leaking, that may not need that. I mean, it could, but for the vast majority of things, does that really need a lights and sirens to go to? Because the fewer times you can use that, the more impactful it'll be. It'll be like if you have one piece of candy, you're like, oh man, this candy's really sweet. Halloween's coming up, so that's why I'm thinking about candy. Whereas if you have 15 pieces of candy, you're like, I'm in a diabetic coma now. So you just bridle the number of calls that use that.
Yeah. And I just know that they're going to have to really be ready to explain it and be ready for someone to say, because they did not come lights and sirens, XYZ happened, because that expectation is embedded in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where it is. It's embedded and they expect it. And so if they don't get it, just be prepared to answer for that. And can we answer whether or not that's the right way to go? I think 198 lives, no matter how many, were a direct result of the lights and sirens that may or may not have been needed. We don't know that. But I think that it begs looking into, and I get why they have decided to make that choice.
Because
I get it.
Ultimately, we want to make sure that as many people go home and are safe and well and healthy and don't have their businesses and houses burning as possible. And whatever we have to do to make that happen, that's the right choice. So you got to just,
even if it means some extra PSAs to get the word out as to why we're doing what we're doing or not doing what we're not doing. Yeah.
So if you're an agency that needs a PSA, let us know. We'll be happy to put it out there.
For a small fee, of course.
Oh, yes, yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, like, I got to maintain my Maserati. We haven't had in a while a mailbag segment, so let's open it up and see what we got.
Oh, my gosh. Mailbag.
Ding, ding, mailbag's here. It's the sound we love to hear. Quick and bright, the vibe is clear. Let's read your words with a cheer.
Alrighty, our first question comes from EMT Jake 23. What is the most difficult part of being a dispatcher that people outside the job wouldn't expect?
The most difficult part that the people outside wouldn't expect. So they expect the stress. They expect, long shift work. They expect that. They expect being away from family. Difficult. I might need a minute.
Okay.
Because right now I'm blanking because I'm so, why though, is we're so used to it
Yeah.
till it's no longer difficult. I would say adapting to the culture,
Okay.
because it is a culture shock. It is, you have to learn to think differently. You no longer are just Joe Schmo that doesn't know anything about what's going on. And actually, let me make that make more sense. You know more about crime than you ever wanted to know. You know more about people than you ever wanted to know. And maintaining a positive outlook is probably one. And I don't know if the people would be surprised to hear that or not, but for me, it was a culture. It was getting into this law enforcement first responder mentality and that sense of duty and that sense of duty and service, because you would think that it would be easy, but it's really not.
Mhm. I, I would say that it's probably the stop and go nature of the job. So you're going to have either long stretches of boredom punctuated by brief moments of absolute insanity, and that's kind of your life. I mean, I think the culture is a big part too, but just that sort of, you have to be okay with nothing, 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 or just mundane, tedious stuff for hours and hours, and then boom, got a shooting, boom, multiple car collision. It's crazy, it's crazy. Back to tedious. That it's it's not a
You're
steady
right.
stream.
That's true. And okay, one that I just thought of as you were saying all of that, maintaining your weight is definitely a challenge,
Yes,
because you have all of these adrenaline dumps. When they come, they're just like you said, tedium, boredom, ho hum, talking to your colleagues, busy doing nothing. But when the big call, the boom happens, your body responds in a fight or flight way, and all these chemicals dump, right? And then you sit
Mhm.
and you sit and you sit and you sit some more. So maintaining a healthy weight is a huge challenge. Why most people don't even realize you gain 10, 15 pounds within the first few years
At least.
of this profession. Yeah,
I
in
used
this
to be a
profession.
thin young man.
Yeah, and we all are either, having to do some sort of exercise regimen, or, some of us are taking weight loss aids, and we have to, because now that's the battle. I take back everything before. Some of that's important, but this right here is the thing. And it was triggered by you saying what you said. Yeah.
Okay. Thin Gold Line Mom says, what advice would you give someone considering a career in emergency communications?
Be ready for shift work.
Yeah.
Be ready for nights, weekends, holidays, and know that when it is on the application and they ask you, can you work nights, weekends, holidays? They're not joking. That's a real question, and you need to be prepared to answer it, and not just yes because you want the job. Yes, because you will be required to work nights, weekends, and holidays. So I would say get ready for that. And if you have children, get ready for childcare to not be a reason that you can't continue to come to work. Not that it's important, not important, but be ready for that, because that's the biggest shock, I think, to a lot of people. They think that they can go in and just say, I want days. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I would echo that as well, that if you go in, change your mentality to understand that, you might be held at work for, long periods of time, maybe even days if there's a major natural disaster. You may not get weekends and holidays off. You may miss things. You need to show up to work on time, ready to go. Can't walk in late. Can't be hung over. There's it's
Please, not hungover.
it's an important job, and if you don't mentally say this is what I'm doing when you start, it's going to be so much harder. So
I agree.
just just clear out all of those issues that you're going to have, and change your mind over to be like, this is what I am. I'm a first responder now. I owe a duty to my community. I'm going to fulfill that duty and be of service.
Yeah, agreed. Well said.
All right, and let's do one more question. Shift Work Survivor asks, how do you
That's
deal
funny.
how do you deal with the mental health side of night shifts and constant high stress?
I haven't had to do night shift in about 3 years, so I have to dig a little to remember. For me, nights was great. I loved nights. It didn't bother me to be awake when everybody else was asleep after a long period of time of doing night shift. But I would think in the very beginning, one of the hardest things is adapting to the fact that most people in your life are asleep when you are up and ready to go. And when it's time for you to go to bed, they're up moving around. And you're going to have to find a balance on how to still be involved with the people that matter the most to you, which when you don't have that balance, then becomes it begins to impact your mental health. You become lonely, you feel isolated, and that can, if you're not careful, it can trigger, bouts of depression, things like that. So I would say find healthy ways to manage your alone time. Find people and things and activities that you can do when people are awake when you are, and be willing to adjust your rest time and sleep time to still bring in your friend groups and your family. That's going to be the major thing. And if you find that you are not coping well, take advantage of the help that is available. If you are someone that is doing this and you might be hearing this, or if you're thinking about it, just know that there's lots of resources. I don't know an agency that doesn't have some sort of mental health, peer support, or something similar to help you cope.
Mm-hmm. Erica, you're a much more sympathetic person than I am. I would say if you're on night shift, just if you're as if you're on a day shift, be disciplined about going to sleep. Make sure you have your rest time when you need to, set up a schedule. If you're going to sleep as soon as you get home, make sure you keep to that, because it's hard to get sleep on night shift.
That's true.
You get used to it being up overnight, but you never really feel 100% there, And
Yeah, because and you can't, because it's not our bodies are not designed to be awake overnight. You'll get the best sleep you can get, but if you're right, Gary, if you're not disciplined, you will find that your health and your mental health will begin to suffer if you're not at least disciplined.
Yeah.
When it's time to go to bed, shut it down, go to bed.
Yeah, and I'm a natural night owl, and even I'm saying that, being up until the sunrise, I mean, it's cool, you get to see the sunrise, maybe go play a round of golf after work, but it's if you try and adjust it a whole lot, which is going to be real tempting to do, because sometimes people are going to want to do things in the morning, and then maybe the next day they're going to want to do something in the evening or the afternoon, and you can get yourself into a whole world of trouble by trying to be everything to everyone.
I agree. And I think the main thing there is balance, because I think you can go too far on one end and not far enough on the other. Yes, you should be disciplined on the days when you have to work and you're working night shift. Set your sleep time and stay diligent. But there will be times when you will have to make some adjustments, or you will never have a life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
yeah.
There must be balance in all things, from your sleep work schedule to the number of times that you use lights and sirens to respond to calls. And we hope that on balance, you enjoyed this episode and found it amusing and entertaining. And that if you have any thoughts or comments on that, or if you have any questions you'd like to ask as well, you can always shoot us an email to lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. From all of us at Lifeline 911, I'm Gary.
I'm Erica.
And we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911 Podcast, copyright 2025. From all of us at Lifeline, stay safe out there. And until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.